evening and welcome to our 2022 Sault Ste. Marie Ward 3 Forum. Tonight's forum is being held in council chambers at the Ronald A. Irwin Civic Centre. My name is Jennifer Rushton. I'm the Vice President for Plato Testing and a proud Chamber of Commerce board member. I will be acting as your MC for tonight's forum. We wish to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting on the traditional, territorial, and ancestral lands of the Ojibwe people from Garden River and Batchewana First Nations, as well as the Métis people. To the Anishinaabe people, this sacred and spiritual place has been known since time immemorial as Bowating. We wish to honor the original people on this part of Turtle Island as we recognize their homelands in the spirit of partnership and reconciliation. As part of their ongoing commitment to our local community, Algoma University, the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, and SooToday have partnered to present tonight's event. I would now like to call on our moderator, Dr. Trevor Cheer, Associate Professor of Political Science and Chair of the Department of Law and Politics at Algoma University.
Thank you. And before we begin, I would like to remind everyone here in person that if you haven't already done so, please either turn off your phone or set your ringer and notifications to silent mode, please. I would like to run through the format for tonight's Ward 3 Forum. All candidates on the ballot for the October 24th election were invited to take part tonight. Seating and question order for the candidates was decided by a random draw prior to tonight's broadcast. Similarly, questions and their order were decided before tonight's broadcast and prior to the candidates' draw, so the first respondent to each question will be based on luck of the draw. Questions will be posed tonight by students currently enrolled in political science and law and justice programs at Algoma University. Thank you in particular to Nadine Roach and Keegan Galt, who are asking the questions tonight. Once a question has been posed, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. And at the end of their allotted response time, their mics will be turned off. With each new question, a different candidate will respond first. I'd like to remind all candidates of a few ground rules. Profanity and interrupting other candidates who have the mic won't be tolerated, and at any point I may request a candidate to stay on topic. At the end of our question period, each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks, during which they've been invited to speak a little bit about their leadership style and how they would help to ensure good governance on City Council. We would like to thank and welcome the candidates who are joining us this evening. Ron Zagordo, Kurtis McDermid, Angela Caputo, and Louis Moreno. At this point, we'll move to our first question, which will be posed this evening by Keegan Galt.
All right, so the question is, what will you do to improve Sault Ste. Marie's economy, create more jobs and opportunities, and make this city an attractive place to do business?
Thanks, Keegan. Our first respondent to question 1 is Ron Zagordo.
Thank you, everyone. Before we look at other ways and new ways of, celebrating and looking at, economic development in Sault Ste. Marie, I think we need to celebrate the great things we already have in place. Things like the Bush Plain Museum and Festival, cultural days, the Sioux Greyhounds, Oktoberfest, the Weekend for Truth and Reconciliation, the Agawa Canyon Tour. These are just a few of the things that we're already doing in Sault Ste. Marie that I feel we've fallen short a little bit in terms of advertising, in terms of economic development. And I think we need to relook at some of the great things that are in place already for Sault Ste. Marie before we move on to other ventures that may cost taxpayers more dollars. It seems like we do things, we have things, and we forget them, and we forget to put some of our efforts into them, such as some of the things that I've mentioned already. So in terms of economic development, my first priority would be to take a look at some of the great things we already have. Let's look at the positives, and there's a lot of great positive things in Sault Ste. Marie first, and work on those. Let's advertise those, and make sure people in the province of Ontario and even across the nation are aware of the things that are going on in Sault Ste. Marie and building off that.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
Economic development is about jobs and it's about job growth. Right now, we are at the crux of a labor shortage in town right now. And we need to ask ourselves, why are we at a crux of a labor shortage? We have a great blue collar community. We have a great growing culture in this city, but we don't have the workers. We don't have the entry level workers here specifically. We have so many jobs at the bottom level of the chain that are looking for growth. We need to fill those jobs, and that is going to develop our jobs here. When we can fill our low-level labor jobs, our entry-level trades jobs, those jobs are going to grow, and those jobs are going to become skilled trades, licensed trades, senior tradesmen, foremen. We need to put a focus on bringing those people in. I run a business. I know a ton of people that run businesses, and those businesses are struggling to fill those positions right now. You're either getting resumes from people who have extremely limited availability, or you're getting resumes from people who are looking for top-level jobs. We need to attract people to come here for entry-level jobs that are going to know that our city has growth opportunity in those jobs, because there is no shortage of work being done here. There's no shortage of contracts up for grabs in this city. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
I can speak to economic development from experience. I opened the Breakfast Pig in 2015 at the corner of Bruce and Grosvenor, a spot that had been vacant for a number of years, and that was looked at as something that could and would never thrive. Here we are, 7 years later. The Breakfast Pig is a Sault Ste. Marie staple and a tourist attraction. I employ 15 to 20 people with full health benefits and competitive wages. This is something I'm very proud of. I think we need to encourage more employers to start their businesses here. The transition that I was able to make at 265 Bruce Street mirrors the transition that I envision being a part of for Sault Ste. Marie. I'm a leader in all that I do and have been recognized many times for my leadership skills over the years. Encouraging and supporting local business and keeping Northern dollars here is so important. As a local business owner, I have ensured that I'm working with local butchers and local people to keep money here. It is very difficult as a Northern community to get provincial and federal funding. So if we can create a circle here where we are supporting one another, we will start to see economic growth and development. I also think we have a beautiful natural environment here that should be absolutely more advertised and taken advantage of. This is something that can't be replicated. Another city can't replicate our boardwalk, our waters, our hub trail, and those types of things. So I think really supporting our local businesses is something massive that we can do for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Luis Moreno.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present my vision for Ward 3 and the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you, Trevor, for moderating this debate, and thank you, Keegan, for the question. I think that there is no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic affected all of us. It affected our public institutions, it affected small businesses and our local economy. My plan is simple. I want to put people at the heart of every decision making, and therefore I'm coming out with a plan. This election is not about us, the candidates. This election is about you. It's about the residents of Ward 3 and about Sault Ste. Marie. We need to rebuild trust in our public governance. The mayor and city council must work together to put your needs first. Number two, we need to attract new businesses and expanding the existing ones. We need to work in every single industry. We need to work with our Indigenous communities to ensure that tourism is being created. We can't forget about our small businesses because they are the backbone of our local economy. We need to start looking into the future and create the right economic conditions so that recent graduates, young people, can stay right here in the Soo. If there is a development happening in Sault Ste. Marie, we need to negotiate with those developers. We need to create jobs for young people so that they can stay right here in the Sioux. They need to live here, they need to work here. We need young people. We already have them. Let's.
Thank you. I'll now invite Nadine Roach to the microphone to ask the second question.
Good evening, candidates. What will you do to ensure a reasonable minimum standard of living for people in Sault Ste. Marie, including income security, access to affordable, quality housing, and food security?
Thank you. We'll begin with Kurtis McDermid.
We're having a housing problem in this city, and that is, to put it lightly. One of those problems is that we have what have been deemed white-collar squatters in this city. We have hundreds of houses that are not on the market right now. That's throwing off the supply and demand curve, and that is driving rent prices through the roof right now. We need to make sure that council attacks this problem. We need to find ways to enforce property standards. We need to find ways to enforce vacancy laws. We need to take care of that housing problem. But on the other end, we need to make sure that people have quality jobs, and as I was saying before, jobs with vertical growth in them. My company is one of only 4 certified living wage providers in this city. We need more of that. We need to ensure that when people are getting their entry-level jobs, that those jobs have vertical growth in them, that those jobs will make it so that they can support a family with those jobs, and so that they can grow their family and grow their legacies in our city. Because if we don't have people willing to grow their legacies in this city, then we are up that certain creek without a paddle.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
We have seen so much growth in empowering local leaders who are champions of ensuring things like food security. I see Kathy Surrett here. She is one of the leaders of the Indigenous Friendship Center here in Sault Ste. Marie, who does great work to ensure that people do experience food security. The Every Breakfast Counts program. I myself championed a program called Feed the Kids through the COVID-19 pandemic, where I partnered with the John Howard Society to be able to deliver over 3,000 meals to children in geared to income housing complexes. Empowering these local leaders is extremely important. We need to stand behind the people who have the heart and the mindset to want to help. And as your Ward 3 councillor, I will ensure that I am there. I am at events. I am sorry, I mean to look at you because you asked the question, but I will be at those events. I have been at those events. I want people to be fed, especially children. I think another important piece to that is we could be planting more community gardens. Who cares if that food is getting taken? That's what it's for. Anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Luis Moreno.
Well, a house in Ontario in 2018 was at an average cost of $550,000. In 2022, this year, $830,000. Since 2018, the housing prices in Sault Ste. Marie have gone up 16%. Nadine, thank you for bringing this question because you've heard my opponents. I have a plan, I have a vision, and it's a very simple one. My plan is simple because I will advance that diversification and density in our communities. I will advance zoning that enables diversity of housing forms to be built. Diversity of housing, for example, to seniors who want to downsize, but they can't because there's not enough fourplexes. In the north, we do face challenges such as access to labor, access to supply, shorter building season. But my plan includes changes to zoning to increase density of housing, changes to speed up the time for approvals, work and collaborate with all levels of government. Zoning is a big issue, and not many people know that. City Council and the Mayor, we have the ability and the leadership to ensure that zoning is made. Where grocery stores go, where food banks are allocated. If you're planning if you want to cultivate food in your yard, there's bylaws for that. And therefore, we have a leadership position to ensure that everyone, that this city works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ron Zagordo.
So for what I've been hearing a lot of is not really assisting people or helping them out, but looking at their situation and try to, put Band-Aid approaches to that. And I don't believe in that. What I believe in is providing resources to help people get to a point where they can, provide for themselves, have good quality jobs, and that's what we need in Sault Ste. Marie, it's good quality jobs. And, I use the adage, alone we do so little, but together we can do much, much more. And what I mean by that is that there is a responsibility that the provincial and the federal government have as well. We talk about our tax dollars and what we can and cannot do, and we're always stretching that dollar, but those two levels of government have a responsibility as well when it comes to housing, foods, and security. So I think we need to lobby those two levels of government to play their part in a bigger role in what's going on in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you. I'll now invite Keegan Galt to ask our third question.
To get around the city, cars, trucks, and buses and bicycles need good roads. What are your planning priorities for the city's roadways? Further, what will you do to improve public transit?
We'll begin with Angela Caputo.
So in our city, I think we continue to see the old problem of the potholes. I think it's everyone's number one complaint. And I'll be honest, I am not an expert on how to build a roadway, but I would love to learn. So I would love to be able to sit in on a meeting with an expert, with people who can enlighten me and our council on how to make the roadways better, how to ensure that we are able to create roadways that can withstand our winters. I am so tired of seeing the same roads being fixed, the same potholes being patched. Clearly, what we are doing right now is not working. And so our tax dollars are being spent, in my opinion, foolishly on patchwork. Something else I'd like to touch on is I think we need to ensure an accessible bus station for everyone. And we also need to recognize that this is a really car-centered city and encourage new methods of public transportation, such as the downtown trolley, which has been brought forward. It would be lovely if people could park their cars. Our downtown is so long. It would be lovely if they could park their cars at one end and have public transport to hit the other end and showcase our local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Luis Moreno.
Well, thank you for the question, Keegan. Again, transit is an incredibly important part of moving people in cities of all sizes. Ask your candidate running for Ward 3, what is their plan to ensure that we have better transportation, that we have safety in our streets? And I can tell you that we need to work with all three levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal governments. We need to accommodate walking and cycling in part of our transportation plan. It needs to be affordable and it needs to be convenient. On October the 10th at around 4 p.m., Sault Ste. Marie's police stopped a vehicle that was traveling 106 kilometers per hour on a 50-kilometer zone. The police, they took the license, the vehicle was impounded, 30-day suspension. I'm the only candidate who has a plan to ensure that we make our streets safer by design, and that is reducing speeding limits in all residential areas. That will help also if we put removable or permanent speed bumps across our city. We do need bigger fish to fry, but I think it's important that we have a plan to ensure that the safety is first across all of our city. We need to ensure that we design our streets safer by narrowing the streets, reducing speeding limits, and put removable speed bumps. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ron Zagordo.
It's interesting that the road issue keeps coming up, in every election, and yet we still have a Band-Aid approach to our roads. I'd like to use a quick analogy about my concept about approaching our roads. You know, there might be a young family and they want to go on a vacation, but they find that going on the vacation, it's just too much money. And so you might not be able to go this year or next year, but if they come up with a plan, a long-term plan where they're doing some savings, they might be able to reach their goal in a couple of years. And I give you that analogy only because I think that's the way we need to approach our road situation. We need a long-term strategy. It might be something as simple as starting in one ward and moving across to Ward 5, and it may take a number of years before that happens. It might be 2 or 3. But the good news about that is, whether it's this year or next year or the following year, at least the people in that particular ward know that there's going to be some improvements to the roads if there's a long-term plan. The other thing is we need, in terms of transportation, is we need to think outside the box. As an educator, I was an educator for over 30 years. I know one of the biggest expenses for boards is transportation. And yet we have transportation system within the city, and yet there's never been any kind of coordination of city with our school systems. And I think there's a potential there for the two to get together and work on something.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
Our roads suck. We all know that. Everybody sitting here knows that. Everybody that sat here all night knows that. Everybody sitting on council knows that. And I think there was a really good point brought up at a council meeting a few months ago when they were talking about the potholes. And that is that we've had to divert money away from our roads budget for various things. And we are diverting money away because our tax base isn't big enough here. I like to use the analogy that we're a single mother, single child family, and we're living in a 6-bedroom, 4-bath house. We have a ton of roads here per capita. We have a ton of infrastructure here per capita. And we've diverted money away from the maintenance of that, and it's caught up to us. Those little patches now are huge holes. And it's going to take an absolutely massive investment to catch up now. And the only way we are going to catch up is if we have a larger tax base that is paying into our levy so that we have the money to pay for that. And our transit needs work. It's been improving. We see our buses on demand now, but I had somebody come for an interview. They called me and said I can either be there half an hour early or half an hour late. Our city is way too small for our transit system to put somebody somewhere half an hour early or half an hour late. Thanks.
Thank you. We return to Keegan Galt to ask the 4th question.
What will you do to help protect Sault Ste. Marie's natural environment and enhance its recreational opportunities?
Thanks, Keegan. We begin with Louis Moreno.
Thank you, Keegan, again for the question. I think that we need leadership on this issue. My commitment to you and to the people of Ward 3 is to start the conversation with community leaders, grassroots organizations, and all elected officials. There needs to be a plan, and I'm not hearing any plan from my opponents tonight, so I'll tell you mine. There is no time to waste on this matter because we need to protect our air, our land, and water. By reducing speeding limits, we may be able to reduce greenhouse emissions and air pollution. We need to maintain our public parks. We have a beautiful city. We need to make them safe and accessible to children, to our youth, people with disabilities, and our seniors. We need to make public transit more accessible for everyone. We need to utilize to the fullest our Roberta Bonder Pavilion, make it easier for organizations to host events there. We need to work on our waterfront. We're going to elect a new city councilor on October the 24th. We need to start having these conversations with the new owners of Station Mall to ensure that we have activities there, to ensure that we have shops there, to bring businesses into the zoo. We need to expand our hub trail so that it's able to connect on all areas and corners of our city. I live close by Fort Creek, and I love that place. I love the way that Sault Ste. Marie is. I love the city, and I want to serve you as your next Ward 3 city councilor.
Thank you. Next is Ron Zagordo.
So I think, once again, we need to celebrate the good things that we're doing in Sault Ste. Marie and try to enhance those things. I think when it comes to recycling, we're doing a good job. Can we do better? We can always do better. In my visits to neighbors through Ward 3 neighbors. One conversation that I had was, you know, our ability or inability to compost, and that some communities are doing a lot better job when it comes to composting, and I think that's another avenue that we can take a look at in order to continue that. One of the other things when it comes to our environment is we do have bylaws in place. There are laws in place, and I think they need to be enforced when it comes to any kind of environmental issue that's coming up in Sault Ste. Marie. In terms of our natural beauty, we're very fortunate that we have that just within minutes drive outside Sault Ste. Marie. And I think we, again, need to celebrate that. And we do a number of things like cycling and biking, hiking, water sports, and fishing. And we need to advertise those things, that those things are accessible here in Sault Ste. Marie for young families. So those are some of the things and some of the ideas that I propose.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
Our city's made a big transition over the last few decades. We used to be a very industrial-focused city, and now we've rebranded ourselves as the work-life balance city, the tourism city. What we should be living up north here. We should be like the West Coast is. We have all the natural beauty they have. And a lot of our environmental concerns get answered when we do that. We see things like the Canal District. Their carbon footprint is a fraction of what it would have been if it was another paper mill. The downtown plaza, that's a fraction of the carbon footprint that a large development would be there. By doing this, by focusing on our tourism and focusing on the beauty of our city, we're going to see those environmental concerns continue to start to help themselves. But we need to make sure that when we're focusing on our tourism, that we're open for those tourists. I've seen cruise ships downtown, and I've seen the Bellevue Park Canteen closed, and the Pavilion Canteen closed, and the Pavilion with not a single car in the parking lot and not a single event going on. So if we're gonna focus on our tourism, our natural beauty, and use those tools to help our environment, we need to make sure that our city is open for those people. And those are small steps we can take. Making sure there's entertainment going on, making sure those canteens are open. Those are the things that we need to tackle, and then everything else is gonna help fall in place.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
We need a lot of leadership on this issue, especially the issue of environment. And we need to be calling on higher government for responsibility from places, and I am not going to be afraid to call it out. We need some responsibility from Algoma Steel. Recently, there was an oil spill that we still don't know much about. And where are our elected officials on this? Where is City Council on this? How do we get these answers? We still don't know the full effects of what has gone on. We need strong voices who will not back down when the publicity stops, because that's what I find. When it's out of the paper, it's out of sight and out of mind. But it's not out of my mind. We cannot replicate our waterways. We cannot replicate our environment. We need leaders who are going to push. Even if it is our best employer, we need to push to ensure the safety of our community and of our environment. We also, on a less serious level, I think we should push for more things like our Waterfront Adventure Center. I visited a lot of homes of seniors who were really looking to stay fit through the winter and wanting to play pickleball. We have an active pickleball, over 400 members who would love to be doing.
Thank you. We now go to Nadine Roach to ask our next question. Thanks, Nadine.
Good evening again. How will you carry out your allyship and commitment to the urban Indigenous population of Sault Ste. Marie?
Thanks, Nadine. We turn now to Ron Zagordo.
I think there's two areas that we need to focus on. The first one is communication. I think there needs to be greater lines of communication between all peoples to understand what's going on and what's happening and what the needs are that are out there. And I think the second component is education. And once again, having been in education for 30-plus years, it's wonderful to see that the education piece is happening in our schools. But I think that education piece needs to spread out through to everyone throughout the city and understand what's going on. I'm proud to say that, and I'm happy to see that the education is happening with our youth. I think when we begin with our youth, that'll translate as they get to be adults, that the communication piece and understanding needs to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
Personally, I feel I need to look, listen, and learn. That's the position I am in as somebody who's not Indigenous. Look, listen, and learn. And I've been doing that, and I hope to do more. I saw a festival early this June that came in, Summer Moon Festival. That was some great relationship building with Indigenous. It was Indigenous artists. We brought in famous Indigenous musicians that came in. Those were great things. Those helped me see a little bit more of the culture, and I'd love to see more of that. I'd like to see the culture more ingrained with our festivals, more ingrained with the community events that are going on, because we as non-Indigenous people need to look, listen, and learn. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
In regards to relations with Indigenous peoples around the areas, we need less talk and more action. I would love to see more people showing up at local powwows. I have started to attend those, and I've felt so welcome and learned so much. Seeing the beauty of the dancers and asking questions and passing tobacco and learning more about the land that we live on and the people that, frankly, we did very wrong by. So showing up is number one. I think we also, as a council, need to really read up on the 94 calls to action, and we need to act on them. There is low-hanging fruit there that is very doable, and you have my word, Nadine, that I will push for those things. I will ensure that all councillors are at least given the opportunity to show up and learn about the terrors of residential school and things like that. It's not always pretty, but I think it is something that we need to really focus on and sink our teeth into. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Luis Moreno.
Thank you, Nadine, for your question. It sucks to go last because they all say what I wanted to say. But I can tell you one thing for sure, truth and reconciliation. There cannot be reconciliation if the truth is not out. And I think it's extremely important that we push for that. We also need to push for city councilor or mayor who are of Indigenous descent. And I'm proud to say that Mayor McLeod, it's an Indigenous person who is running for city councilor in Ward 4, and we need to support him. All of our voices need to be heard. He is the youngest candidate in this race. I am the second youngest candidate in this race. And I can tell you that being a visible minority, I understand some of the issues. But going back to being of Latin American descent, my Indigenous peoples also suffered. But we need truth and we need reconciliation. We need to start educating our young ones at a very early ages so that they understand what happened in our history. Recent immigrants who are becoming Canadian, they are learning about it before taking their Canadian citizenship test. But we need to start that talk. We need to start reconciliating. We need the truth out. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go back to Nadine for the next question.
So what will you do to ensure that the administration is implementing continuous improvement techniques and benchmarking of best-in-class municipal practices to ensure accountability to the taxpayer and demonstrate return on taxpayers' investment?
Thanks, Nadine. We begin with Kurtis McDermid.
The more people that are involved, the more transparent you're forced to be. And we see that we don't have the involvement in our community that we need. And we can say that City council holds information sessions and holds town halls and invites people into council and streams council sessions. But the fact is, people aren't attending. And we need to get those people to attend. Perhaps there needs to be a minimum that you need to reach out to so many community members before something gets passed, before something comes through. And if people didn't show up to your town hall, that was your fault because you weren't communicating it properly, you weren't marketing it. I own a business, and the only person who is at fault when customers don't come in, when clients don't come in, is me. It's not anybody else's fault because they didn't see my marketing. It's not anybody else's fault that they didn't walk through that door and that my product didn't bring them in. That is what we need. We need to get people in those seats. We need to get people sitting here at council. And on a lighter note, I think we can start by making those benches over there a heck of a lot more comfortable, because I've been here for about 3 hours and they are not comfortable at all. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
Accountability to taxpayers is often confused with keeping taxes low, which is something that I hear so often. We are not the gatekeepers of public dollars. I think that we need to come to a recognition that we are being elected to ensure that money is spent responsibly, that we are putting forth these dollars for growth and development. We want to see this community thrive. We can't be talking about, cutting taxes. It's a fallacy. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that I want to raise taxes, but we need to ensure accountable spending. And I think a way that we can do that is end closed-door council meetings unless they're absolutely necessary. We had a lot of closed-door council meetings. I think it causes a lot of mistrust with the community, which then in turn causes our problem of low voter turnout. I also really want to see, I definitely will head back out to doors. If there is a certain neighborhood that is affected by a motion being put forward, I want to know how you feel about it. And if I can't get you out by a town hall, I'm coming to knock at your door at dinner time. I'll find you because I want to be responsible to you.
Thank you. Next is Luis Moreno.
Thank you again for the question. Well, I hear it at the doors. I've been canvassing over the past few months, and I hear that it's harder and harder to live right here in Sault Ste. Marie. Unlike my opponents, I do believe that taxes should be kept as low as possible. We need to be mindful of our public wallet. But when it comes to accountability, I believe in customer service. I'm a public servant. I understand that your taxpayers' money is paying for my salary, so I should be able to provide you with great customer service. I believe in town hall meetings. I believe in general public opinion polls. I believe that your city councilor, your candidate at this moment, should be knocking on your doors, having conversations at the door, listening to your concerns. This is what I've developed a platform, a plan, and a vision to bring and to move Sault Ste. Marie forward together. I believe that we should all be working together with all levels of government to ensure that your interests are put first. That is my commitment to you, and I hope I can count on your vote on October 24th.
Thanks. Next is Ron Zagordo.
Well, in order to control rising property taxes, municipalities need a broader range of revenue tools. We should have in place revenue resources that automatically grow with the economy. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we need to keep community members informed and include them whenever possible in the decision-making and marketing of our community. We need to promote the growth of all economic sectors. We need to encourage sustainable business practices, and we need to create an official community and strategic plan for the city. Identify and market Sault Ste. Marie's community assets, which I mentioned earlier this evening, creating projects that support economic development, and creating a more public-private partnerships. I think that's very important. And then the simplest thing that we can do is just smarter purchasing. I don't know the procedures that are in place, what city councilors do in terms of the purchasing process, but we need to do smarter purchasing in the future.
Thank you. We'll now move to our final question of the forum. which will be posed by Keegan Galt.
What will you do to help improve public health and safety in Sault Ste. Marie?
For this final question, we'll begin with Angela Caputo.
Thanks for the question, Keegan. Public safety has been at the forefront of a lot of questions that I've received at the door, especially when we're speaking about our downtown. Now, something that I found really saddening, 3 officers were killed this month in active duty here in Ontario. This is not a problem that is specific to Sault Ste. Marie, as we can see. But I do think that here in this city, we do have a responsibility to keep our kids safe at a lower level. You know, we've spoken a lot about speeding and things like that. I grew up in a place where I could play kick the can until, you know, the lights went out and we didn't worry about anybody ripping down our roads. That's a huge piece in keeping people safe. I think we also need to really focus on our youth. Again, I will hit that home every time. I will advocate for our youth. We cannot expect kids to model behaviors that they've never seen. So as community leaders, we need to step forward and give these youth the opportunity to see a different life. And that is what I will bring to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Luis Moreno.
Thank you, Keegan, for your question. Part of my platform is to make our neighborhoods safer for our children, for our community, for our seniors, for our families. And I want to address the drug poisoning and overdose problem that we're facing in our city. We need to work collaboratively with all elected officials, with communities, with grassroots organizations, indigenous communities and leaders, because we need to destigmatize mental health and substance use. I believe our city must adopt the following strategy. 1, the mayor and city council must declare a public health emergency. Number 2, we need to create a mental health and addiction task force along with Algoma Public Health and our police services. And number 3, we must adopt a 4-pillar approach, which is harm reduction, prevention, treatment, and enforcement. There's a treatment center that is being built where the old Sault Ste. Building was. But what happens after rehab? They need housing. They need a resume. They need IDs. They need to get back to society in a safely manner. And currently, there is no plan to do that. I think that we, as someone who is running for office, I've heard that at the doors, and we need to do whatever it takes to make our neighborhoods safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ron Zagordo.
When it comes to public health and safety, I think the first thing that we need to look at is resources for those individuals that need it. I'm proud to say that in Sault Ste. Marie, we have a mental health and addictions treatment clinic that is being built at the former Sault Ste. Building site, which is great, but I also think something like a safe consumption site is also required in Sault Ste. Marie. The second thing is, you know, we can't go at it alone. This is a bigger issue than just the municipality of Sault Ste. Marie. And so we do need to bring our provincial and federal partners in, and they have, again, a role to play, and we need to lobby for that. Finally, in Sault Ste. Marie, we do need to support our police and our fire departments to ensure that they have what they need to perform their duties. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
Public health and safety is really hard to achieve when you don't have public health professionals. We don't have doctors in this city. We don't have enough nurses in this city. We don't have enough PSWs in this city. We don't have enough firefighters on our firefighter crew, and we don't have enough police officers hitting the street. I don't understand how we can get public health and safety until we get people working for public health and safety. We need to get those doctors here. We need to find ways to attract those doctors. We need to find out why they're not here. We need to get those nurses here. We need to get those RPNs here. We need to get those nurse practitioners here. The list goes on and on about all that stuff. In the meantime, while we're doing that, one thing that we can immediately do is get our streets cleaned up from trash, from needles, from drug paraphernalia. We need to get public works on it. We need to get more boots on the ground. I did a vacation in Ottawa this year, and when we left early, We saw people with high-vis vests that literally said needle hunter on the back of them, and they worked for the city. We saw people who worked for Salvation Army that were walking around to everybody that was on the streets, and they were giving them bottles of water, fresh blankets, giving them resources. We need those boots on the ground, and we need more of them. I know we have them. We know we have some of them. We just need more. We need more professionals here. We need those jobs filled, and we need boots on the ground.
Thank you. At this point, we invite closing remarks from our Ward 3 candidates, and I'll invite all candidates to speak a little bit about their leadership style and how they would ensure good governance on City Council within these closing remarks. You each have 2 minutes, and we will begin with Luis Moreno.
Hello, everyone. For those watching at home and for those here, thank you for doing that. My name is Luis Moreno, and I'm running to serve as your Ward 3 next City Councilor. I'm running on 3 very simple pillars: love, hope, and change. I love the city, and I hope that everyone who lives in this city can work, can live, and can raise a family. And I believe, like so many of you, that we're ready for change. We need new and innovative ideas that can bring Sault Ste. Marie into the future. We cannot be 20 years behind from every other city. It's time for change. It's time for new. And it's time to bring policies that work for everyone in this city. I'm 29 years old. I'm a public servant. I am the youngest one in this race, but I have the leadership, I have the skills, I have the education to make sure that I put your interest first in City Hall. You need strong representation, and on election day, you have a choice to make. I have a platform, I have a plan, and I have a vision. I invite you to visit my website at www.luismoreno.ca. I'm the only one candidate who has put up a platform, who has been knocking on doors in all of your neighborhoods, and it's important that on October 24th, you vote for change, you vote for someone with experience, with the education, and with a commitment that it takes to represent and to put your voices first in City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ron Zagordo.
At this time, I would like to thank SooToday, the Chamber of Commerce, and Algoma University for organizing the Ward Mayoral Forums. Servant leadership is a philosophy where a leader is a servant first. As a servant leader, I will aspire to serve the people of Ward 3 and citizens of Sault Ste. Marie first. I believe in serving for the greater good, whether it is a more transparent municipal government, healthy and safe neighborhoods, or a vibrant and robust economy. As a servant leader, I will strive to build a strong community to achieve success socially and economically in Sault Ste. Marie. I will listen and pay attention to issues affecting the people of Ward 3 to improve communication and understanding. I will strive to foster relationships between all team members, which will improve trust, productivity, and a sense of community. I will work towards creating a positive working environment where all interactions are more constructive. My focus will be on the growth of the city and the well-being of the people in our community. I would ask and would appreciate your vote on Monday, October 24th as Ward 3 Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kurtis McDermid.
We get to hear a lot when we come and do these forums and when we do debates about our ideas, about our platforms. People get to list off their ideas. They get to run down, this is what I want, this is what I think. But the truth of the matter is we are 1 vote out of 11 people on council. And you also need to know how we're going to work with other councillors, how we are going to represent your views and your opinions on the things that weren't discussed tonight, the things that weren't in the articles. We're going to be, whoever serves is going to be there for the next 4 years. And what we are talking about today is not what's going to concern us 2, 3, and 4 years from now. There's going to be new issues, there's going to be new topics. So you're going to need to elect somebody that you feel represents you and your beliefs, and you need to know a little bit about us for that. So first and foremost, I'd like to tell everybody, I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie here. I've lived in Ward 3 my entire life. I love this city. I came back here after about 6 years in London, after high school, because this is where I wanted to raise my family. This is where nature was close. This is where I could hook up to my boat and go fishing for the afternoon. This is where I could head out to a beach and I'm out there in 15 minutes. This is where I can go mountain biking on my lunch break. This is the city I want to live at. I have 3 beautiful children. We just got a new dog, and I own a business here in the city. So I have stakes in the success of this city. It's going to affect my family. It's going to affect my business. We are one of only 4 living wage providers in this city. We employ 20 plus people in this city. So what's happening in this city and the growth of this city is really affecting myself, my family, and my business. So I hope to have your support, and I hope that you'll know that I'll be there to support you throughout the entire 4 years, not just on the issues that we got to talk about tonight.
Thank you. Next is Angela Caputo.
2 minutes is a very short time to culminate a lifetime of community support that has led to my campaign run. I am the only woman running in this ward and the only woman under 40 in this entire election. So if I am not elected, that is a demographic that will not be seen. I want to be your Ward 3 councillor because Sault Ste. Marie has made me the woman that I am today. I grew up in a neighborhood where, as I said, I could stay out and play until the lights came on without worries of speeders or anything like that. I had adults who volunteered their time to run camps to keep costs down so that all children could participate in sports. I had coaches who took the time from their own young families to mold young and influence young women like myself. I had teachers who took time on their lunch break to speak to us if we needed it. I grew up in a family that was fueled by small business. I've been recognized and honored for my commitment to this community, but what you all need to realize is that you created this woman. The reason I make time to stand up for issues that are important to me is because people around me made it known to me that my voice was important. That is what I want to do for other young women and young people around me. I will make sure our streets slow down so children can play. I have volunteered as a coach and a mentor. I do support local business through my purchasing at the Breakfast Pig and my own personal spending. Now I want to take my commitment to this community even further. I want to be the first woman under 40 to represent Ward 3. I want to diversify the vote. I want to work for the people who have made me who I am today. My slogan for this campaign has been putting community first, and that did not begin when I filed my papers for this election. It is how I've lived my life to show gratitude for who I am to.
Thank you.
On behalf of Algoma University, the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, and SooToday, I would like to thank our candidates for taking part in this evening's forum. We wish each of you the best in the remaining campaign period. I would also like to thank the partners who presented this evening's forum. SooToday for helping to organize the forum, collecting questions from the public, and streaming tonight's event online. Algoma University and the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce for hosting the forum. The students of Algoma University's political science and law and justice courses for asking the questions. The Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce would like to extend a thanks to North Star Consulting for its ongoing support of the Chamber and for its sponsorship. Thank you to the staff of the Ronald A. Irwin Civic Centre for their help in preparing for this evening's forum. And finally, we would like to thank everyone here and at home for joining us this evening. We hope that this discussion has helped better inform you about each of the candidates and their respective platforms. We encourage all eligible voters to exercise their democratic right on October 24th and have their voices heard in Sault Ste. Marie's municipal election. Thank you and good night.